At the end of Season of the Hunt, I reviewed it, and in that review I was like, guys, I just don't think the seasonal model is any good. It feels kind of phoned in. Maybe we don't even need seasons? And then Bungie were like, challenge accepted, dickhead. In this business, you gotta learn to take the L's, and this season Bungie served me one of the biggest L's of my career by serving up a season so good that I'm about to spend the next 15 minutes singing its praises. It was a season so good that it pushed me into uncomfortable territory, the space where I'm actually recommending Destiny to people who haven't yet played it, or to lapsed players who are eyeing a return. In many aspects, Season of the Chosen served up content, innovation, and refinement so meaty and so on point that it felt like a mini expansion, course-correcting much of what went wrong with Beyond Light and raising the bar to new heights in things like mission design, storytelling, and loot design. It wasn't all perfect, but nothing is, especially in Destiny. But, you know, we're all addicted, so what are we gonna do? Play something else? That'd be really nice, but that's not going to happen. Anyway, let's take a look back at Season of the Chosen. We'll do it blow by blow so we can relive the memories and the memes and try and solve the mystery of how Bungie managed to make a good season.
Join my empire. You'll keep your title and gain a seat on my war council.
Season of the Chosen began with the arrival of Keitel, daughter of the fallen Cabal Emperor who tried to make a good first impression but probably misread the room when she asked Zavala to bow before her.
Bow.
No.
The writing here was a little weak, but luckily Lance Reddick stepped up to the plate to deliver something a little more cathartic.
Excuse me? One fucking Guardian has been kicking your race's collective asses for 9 years.
The opening laid some strong foundations for the coming war with the darkness and foreshadowed the fact that this season, Destiny's storytelling was done taking a back seat. Through exchanges at the helm, overheard transmissions, and sneaky sidebars with Crow, we were served a story that felt like an actual story. Like it had characters, and you cared about what happened to them, and you could follow events without having Bife translate everything for us. I mean, I still watch those translations anyway, but I didn't need them as much this time around. We used to joke that Destiny's lore sat in grimoire cards that existed outside of the game, and then Bungie had this brilliant idea of putting the lore in the video game they made. In Season of the Chosen, Bungie were like, what if we put the story in the game too? And the result was the best, most coherent, most legible, and I think most compelling storytelling that we've ever seen from Destiny, full stop. For the first time ever, it feels like we've arrived at a narrative final form, where Bungie have figured out the perfect way to tell stories in this magnificent world they've built, and they just need to keep doing this, and we'd be happy with it. There's very few parts of Destiny that can be said of. Anyway, week 1 was also the first taste of the new seasonal activity, Battlegrounds. Now, Battlegrounds just dump you on the map, and you kill a whole bunch of bad guys, and that's it. That's all it is. So why is this so fun? Well, as that guy that's married to Travel Danielle keeps saying, it's all about enemy destiny. Wait, enemy density. See, when Destiny 2 was first released, one of its primary design intentions was to rein in our power. Double primaries, longer ability cooldowns, no exotics like Galahorn that would just ether bad guy health bars. It was about making the game tighter, more focused, easier to balance, and less fun. Well, that wasn't a design goal per se, but it was certainly the byproduct of it. Since then, much of Destiny's update path has been about walking back those design goals and towards a fuller, more realized power fantasy, shortening our ability cooldowns to absurd levels, putting chain reaction on swords because that was the thing that was needed, giving us Warmind cells that can explode entire screens of enemies so long as the blueberries don't shoot them first, etc. We are about 80 times more powerful now than we were when Destiny 2 first launched, and that's a good thing, but there aren't 80 times more enemies on screen, and that's a bad thing. It leads to frustrating situations in strikes where unless you're the guy at the front of your fire team, and unless you're double timing it the entire run, there's almost nothing for you to kill. You're all dressed up and modded up and juiced up, but you haven't got anyone to dance with, leaving a lot of your power feeling latent and underutilized. Enter Battlegrounds, a space where Bungie just said, fuck it, and turn the enemy density dial hard to the right. Every encounter is teeming with foes who pour out of dropships like thickened cream, just waiting to be whipped by your Tychus Divination Wrath of Rasputin loadout. You can't swing a cat without hitting 12 enemies, and it feels glorious because there's no other place in the entire game where you feel like more of a guardian than right here. It's such unrestrained, intoxicating violence that it almost makes Destiny feel like an ARPG, like you're playing first-person Diablo just mowing down foes as they spawn by the hundreds. One of the most fascinating things about Destiny that no one really talks about is how functional it is no matter what activity you are doing. Imagine designing a game where a single set of weapons and armor and abilities have to work in ad-clear focused battlegrounds, in tough as nails Grandmaster Nightfalls, in solo Master Lost sectors, in Gambit, in raids, in Trials of Osiris. Most games can't even get one of these things right. Bungie manages to make all of it work at the same time, and while it has its problems, stasis in PvP, it's still a pretty remarkable accomplishment. By this point, everyone had figured out two things. Number one, Curus of the Falling Stars is really strong.
3, 2, 1, go. Huge.
And two, bottom dollar drop rates were really low. In Season of the Chosen, Bungie pushed us back into the playlist with enticing inducements like a nice sniper rifle from Crucible or a nice rocket launcher from Strikes. The money shot though, no pun intended, was the Gambit reward, bottom dollar. A very on-meta 120 hand cannon that could roll with some nasty perks. That's my Aztec Cross impersonation. If you liked it, don't forget to
slap that like button like your mama told you right.
The only downside of playing Gambit for bottom dollar is that you had to play Gambit for bottom dollar, which right now is the worst part of Destiny, except for maybe Trials. Maybe. Remember how I spoke about us becoming more powerful but the game not being redesigned around that so we don't have enough stuff to kill? Well, Gambit is another example of that, but in the opposite direction, where our heavy weapons can map Guardians and Thunder Crash Titans can melt the final boss in seconds. Add to this the variable enemy damage output, the moats falling through the floor, the teleporting enemies, the snowball potential that comes from a big early invade. All of it right now is a train wreck. And you know what? It's not going to change for a long time because the PvP community will whip out the guillotine if Bungie announces a Gambit rework before they announce an overhaul of Trials or even just some new PvP maps. My God, is it that much to ask for? Anyway, what else happened in week 2? Oh yeah, that ghost ship arrived. There are certain events in Destiny's history that we all remember fondly. That day that Xur sold Galahorn and everyone on Reddit was like, save your strange coins for a good weapon. I mean, why would you waste your exotic on a heavy slot? There was the secret Black Spindle mission. There was pretty much the entirety of the Taken King, and then there was that Alexa commercial that guy made using Shaq's quotes.
Alexa, what day is it?
Welcome to Crimson Days.
I'm up.
You've been knocked out.
To this storied pantheon is now added the Presage, such a plum feather in Bungie's cap that it's hard to know where they found the inspiration for this. Destiny has tinkered around the edges of horror, particularly when it comes to Eris and the Moon, but nothing Bungie has done has felt half as tense or immersive or gripping. It was like being Ripley on board the Nostromo, but instead of just one alien xenomorph, you faced an army of Screebs, who are admittedly less intimidating, but no less efficient as killers. The mission wove ambience, soundtrack, soundscape, exploration, puzzle solving, narrative exposition, and the brilliance of Destiny's gunplay into a singular experience that felt so remarkable, like so few games could deliver something that refined. It felt like a vertical slice from a different game, where you could just take this thing and stretch it out to like 8 hours long, and you'd have like Dead Space 4 half built. We give Bungie a lot of shit, but there are very few developers on the planet who could have pulled something like this off, and it's a reminder that we're pretty lucky to have them in charge of the game we all love. And then you go up against Dead Man's Tale in PvP and you're like, what the fuck is Bungie doing? Are these guys for real? Do they even test this gun before they shipped it? Do these guys even play their own game? Seriously, Dead Man's Tale is so utterly absurd, and I can't believe it took us all like to the last few weeks of the season to realize that this weapon cannot get nerfed fast enough. Week 3 saw the return of Fallen Saber, a classic strike from Destiny 1 and one of my favourite strikes ever, in fact. It followed the Week 1 release of the Devil's Lair, which was actually my favourite strike of all time, and I remember running it dozens of times during Destiny's alpha test way back in like 1998 or something, whenever Destiny first came out. As nice as it is to see this old content return, it's disappointing that it has all this old dialogue that's like wrong if you've been following Destiny's lore. It's not the worst offender, of course. In many of the strikes you run, Cade 6 is still alive and well and cracking jokes, which has got to be pretty confusing for blueberries who have just gotten started, but it's emotionally scarring for the rest of us who have to relive the trauma. I'm not against the Destiny content vault rotating content in and out, but Bungie, if you're going to do that, you really should at least make sure that the new content doesn't take a big dump on the game's story, world, and lore. In this regard, Destiny is in a bit of a mess right now, and a cleanup feels long overdue. To distract us from all of this, Bungie let us put 12 people into a raid, and it was fun.
Go.
Oh my god.
Oh my god!
No! Garbage.
In week 4, Trials of Osiris was disabled for the second time in a row because of something called, wait for it, the China Casino Flawless Method. Alright, get this, people were so desperate to avoid playing Trials of Osiris that they figured out a scam where they would equip a Harker emblem to signal their intent to others, and then they would agree to win trade using a dice roll in Steam chat. It followed earlier weeks where people were jumping off the map in Trials. People would literally rather kill themselves than play this game mode. Trials is the preeminent PvP experience within Destiny 2, and right now its game structure and rewards are actually all pretty good. You play some rounds, you get some great loot, but it doesn't make you like overpowered. It's not Recluse Mountaintop 2.0, it's just slightly better stuff that's motivating enough to collect. The issue is that asking people to win 7 games in a row in a card-based matchmaking system that is always going to match you with someone else who needs 7 wins in a row means that everyone is going to walk away disappointed more often than they'd like, and the lack of rewards for spending time in the Trials playlist means that only the most skilled PvPers are going to spend time there. Trials needs a rework of its matchmaking and rewards economy, and it needs it soon because Apex Legends just released their arena mode, and it's like what Trials would be like if it didn't suck. I recommend checking it out if you haven't, it's really good. 5 weeks in was probably about time for you to do a good old vault cleanup so you can decide which of your 15 extraordinary renditions you want to keep. With Beyond Light, one of the biggest criticisms was that the expansion introduced a criminally low number of weapons into the mix, and Bungie owned that, being like, yep, we fucked up, we'll fix it next season. And you know what? They did. This season's haul of new weapons was probably the best since Black Armory? I mean, you had Extraordinary Rendition, Far Future, Jason Derulo, Brass Tacks. These are all fantastic weapons that just happen to come packed with incredible new perks like Frenzy, Impulse Amplifier, and Lasting Impression. Then there's this god tier AoE bow, Tiku's Divination, and Salvage's Salvo, which is one of the best secondaries in the game at the moment. Most Destiny content drops have had like a few guns that are good and then a lot of filler. Season of the Chosen was the opposite of that, where most of what you picked up was really good and you kind of felt sorry for everything else, like, oh, poor threaded needle, no one likes you. No one. It's a shame that the most efficient means of obtaining these weapons was Umbral Engrams, something everyone was really excited about at first, but now everyone's like, whoa, delete these from the game, please. I wasn't playing when Umbrals were first introduced, but everyone speaks fondly of them, which tells me that the previous implementation couldn't have been anything close to what we got in Season of the Chosen, an overly complex, overly grindy time sink that is yet another example of Bungie's propensity to take perfectly good ideas that worked in the past and then just fuck with them for no reason at all. Focusing one Umbral Engram is like 30 to 40 minutes of work for a 50% chance of getting the weapon you want, and then like a tiny % chance of getting the perks you want. If this focusing currency was available across the playlists instead of just in Battlegrounds, then we'd love Umbrals, and the system would serve as a nice passive form of role protection, improving our chances of getting something good if 2 to 3 hours in the playlist prove fruitless. As it stands, I can honestly say I discarded as many Umbral Engrams as I decoded this season, because making the trip to the Helm was sometimes just too annoying, and I never had any focusing currency anyway. I really hope this system gets overhauled next season. Week 6, halfway through the season. Damn, that went fast. One thing that might have helped you pass the time was the new seasonal challenges, which I have to say is a triple S tier addition to the game. Each week a new set of challenges is revealed that not only incentivizes you to play, but also sort of sherpas you through the season. It gives you rewards for playing new Battlegrounds that week, the Presage when it arrives, the Proving Grounds and Nightfalls. It also gently encourages people to do content they don't want to do, like PvP. There's little to distinguish this feature from the bounties we get from the vendors each week, but it's all packaged up so nicely that it feels meaningful. Destiny is such a big game that it can be hard to set goals or feel like you're accomplishing something, and seasonal challenges provided that feeling of satisfaction in spades. And the Bright Dust rewards didn't hurt either. Like I said, Triple S content right here, love to see it.
Let our blood be the last spill.
Week 7 was the final act for Season of the Chosen's narrative, where Zavala and Keitel agreed to parlay after we successfully beat her goons in the Thunderdome. This face-to-face powwow was one of the best cutscenes in Destiny's history, because it brought two storylines to a mighty crescendo. With Keitel we found both a temporary peace and proof of her honor, and with Crow we found a man revealed. Sacrificing his secret identity to protect Zavala, Crow shows the completeness of his transformation from the person who took the Hunter Vanguard's life. And seeing this too, Zavala extends his hand to him in a moment so perfectly framed that you can't but choke up a little. Crow's journey from a creepy brother whose love for his sister was a little too Jaime Lannister for comfort, through to puppet assassin, to plaything and trophy of the spider, to loyal ally of humanity, to probably Amanda Holliday's boyfriend, has been a joy to behold. We all know the mantle he will one day take up, and it's a testament to Bungie's deft storytelling and characterization that we're now all Team Crow. It mirrors the Falcon's journey to become Cap, where before we were like, sure, I guess, go for it if you like. But now we're like, yes, you go Falcon, you are the real Cap, you take that shield, that is yours now. When Crow finally takes his place, I suspect there'll be just as much cheering. Oh, but more important than all of this, Bungie sold Wrath of Rasputin that week. Bad luck if you missed it though, it won't be sold again for another 3 years. Week 8 was the Grandmaster version of the Proving Grounds, which is probably a good time to talk about GMs in general because I certainly have some opinions. This season, Bungie added Adept weapons to GM Nightfalls, mirroring the sorts of rewards you get from a successful Trials card. Along with this came Adept mods, most of which were the same as the ones from Trials, only now PvE players had a path to get them. All great stuff. I think this is a great model because, again, these weapons and mods aren't overpowered must-have items, they're just slightly better, so it feels good. This was a great addition to the game. There were 6 GM Nightfalls this season, and I enjoyed 5 of them. In those 5, I could move around and do shit without getting one-banged by pretty much everything. They were fun. I wanted to run them repeatedly because they were fun. The Proving Grounds was not fun. It was annoying. I never want to go back there ever again. I've seen the guides and the speedruns. I don't need you to link them to me. I don't care. I don't think it should be a design goal to make content so annoying that only a tiny fraction of your player base wants to do it more than once. And I don't have any data to back that up because Charlemagne is broken, but I play with some seriously hardcore people and none of them wanted to touch this place with a 40-foot barge pole after their first completion. Neither did I. I think the other GMs are cool and strike the right balance. I think the Proving Grounds overshoots the mark, but that's just me. Week 9, nothing happened. We got our third Iron Banner for the season in week 10, and it's a great reminder that Iron Banner really sucks right now. It's another one of those examples of Bungie just wrecking something needlessly. We've had at least 2 or 3 different reward models for Iron Banner before the current iteration, and all of them were better than what we have now. Now we have no daily bounties, no ability to farm specific weapons, terrible, unusable perks on most of the weapons that we can get. To be fair, the fact that we have a freelance playlist now is good, and Bungie also experimented with some changes to matchmaking that resulted in some very balanced matches without the entire playlist descending into a sweatfest. It doesn't change the fact that Iron Banner now is really only worth doing when you're grinding pinnacles for power, and that's not good. None of this should come as a surprise though, because if you've been following anything to do with Destiny's PvP scene, you'd know that it's in a bit of a state of crisis. And I'm not talking just about Iron Banner or Trials or PvP maps, I'm talking about public enemy number 1, Stasis. Now look, I've reset my Valor 22 times this season. I actually play PvP in this game because I've always liked Destiny's PvP. It's a good halfway house between Unreal Tournament and Halo and the RPG-led gear game of an MMO like World of Warcraft. It's a unique package underpinned by Destiny's magnificent, unrivaled gunplay, which is still the absolute best gunplay in any video game, full stop. Having said that, Stasis is a malignant cancer that has utterly ruined the PvP side of this game. The freedom and agency we have as Guardians is completely robbed from us by dumbass instant use I win buttons. Imagine designing a game where a super that takes like 4 minutes to charge can be countered by a single Warlock melee. Imagine giving Titans the ability to flash freeze pretty much anyone they want to every 30 seconds. Imagine inventing a grenade that seeks out targets, freezes them, can chain to multiple targets, and gives you visibility through walls. I mean, what the fuck? Why? The nerfs have helped somewhat, but they do not go nearly far enough. Here's what I think. We should not be able to freeze anyone in this video game unless it's with a super. Simple. This game is about speed, movement, verticality. Stasis in its current iteration is the antithesis of that, and until the low cooldown instant freezes are removed, PvP in this game will always be a shadow of its former self. Anyway, speaking of competitive play,
the last time we did this, my Titans achieved what can only be described as a blowout.
Guardian Games. What a meme. For real, this event sucked, we all know that. I mean, the closing ceremony was listed on the roadmap and all it was some fireworks, and they were the Titan fireworks even though the Hunters won. That's just sad. The biggest complaint that people had about Guardian Games and events like it is that they're really more about the Eververse than they are cool things you can earn for yourself. I really am sympathetic to that. I think some work needs to be done to make seasonal events more engaging, but here's my really unpopular take, and I'm going to use it to wrap up this video. We paid $10 for Season of the Chosen. That's new weapons, new armor, new perks, a new strike, a new seasonal activity, seasonal challenges, the Presage, 5 new exotics, more stasis aspects, huge amounts of sandbox rebalancing, and one of the best stories in the history of the game. We got all that for $10. That's silly. Come on now. Even the most cynical among us must admit that $10 for all of that is a little ridiculous. I'm not going to put a specific price tag on the value that Season of the Chosen holds, but I will say it's clear that Bungie have moved into a hybridized pricing model encompassing free-to-play, paid expansions, season passes, and of course, Eververse. I think we get Season of the Chosen so cheap because Bungie plan to make their money through seasonal gear and events like Guardian Games. It's imperfect, yes. Guardian Games pretty much sucks, yes. But Bungie walk a fine line between price and value, and I think that in this season, they broadly got it right. The flip side to this is the laughable transmog system that Bungie have unveiled for Season of the Splicer. A model so bad that it feels like a parody. It feels like the system you announced to purposefully piss off your players so you can then walk it back and players will then be like tricked into thinking they've won the day when they accept the slightly less odious compromise. $10 may be too cheap for the season pass, but whatever Bungie is proposing is certainly too high a price to pay for transmog. There are some uncertain times ahead for Destiny. Sunsetting was sunset, so how will balancing work? What will the transmog compromise look like? Will Bungie rein in stasis? Has Bungie completely abandoned PvP in this game? With the Witch Queen delayed, will there be a content drought? Will Bungie ever be able to fix whatever went wrong with Shorhan's face? These are all valid questions, but after Season of the Chosen, I'm a lot more optimistic about the answers. When I reviewed Beyond Light and Season of the Hunt, I wondered aloud if we would ever return to those halcyon days of yore, where it felt like the best Destiny adventures lay ahead of us. Season of the Chosen had a whole bunch of stuff. Weapons, menus, bells, whistles. More than anything though, it just had this swagger, this chest-beating confidence that was infectious. You couldn't play Season of the Chosen and not feel optimistic about Destiny's future. For a small chunk of content to have done that much heavy lifting, it had to have been pretty special. And it was. Destiny remains as imperfect as ever, but Season of the Chosen was one for the history books, and I suspect we'll be talking about it for a long time to come. Thanks for watching my video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down so I know to do better for next time. If you enjoyed yourself, consider subscribing, and if you really enjoyed yourself, maybe consider hitting that notification bell so you never miss a video. You can see my patrons here on the left. They're awesome. They're amazing. If you want to join them, check out my Patreon page. Thank you again. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.